We are here at the Shrine of the Most Blessed Sacrament in front of the fifth station of the Eucharistic stations, Elijah and the Hearth Cakes. And you know that story of how he wanted to just give up. And so an angel comes and brings him this food that will strengthen him for his long journey to Mount Horeb, where the Lord speaks to him. And so this is a prefigurement of the Eucharist that Jesus will give us, that will strengthen us for the journey through the difficulties of our lives. I wanted to tell you the story, a beautiful story, of a young woman who recently died in 2022, who has been called the Carlo Acutis of India. You know, Carlo Acutis had a great devotion to the Eucharist. He's now beatified. Her name, Anja George. And she had this cancer in her jaw that eventually spread to the rest of her face and caused this terrible disfigurement. And yet what you see in Anja is that you see this radiant smile, even with the disfigurement that was happening, even with what she was going through, she has this radiant smile. And what was it that strengthened her through that and enabled her to have joy even in the midst of her suffering? Was the Eucharist. And even during the COVID times when many parishes had just closed their doors, she would get on a bicycle and she would drive to wherever she could find a parish church that was going to have Mass so that she could receive the Eucharist every day. That was her nourishment, that was her strength. That's what sustained her through the trials and the difficulties of this terrible cancer that she was going through. But she knew that if she had Jesus in her heart, that would be her consolation, that would be her hope. That would be her eternal life. So you and I, we sometimes have trials in our lives. St. Paul describes running the race until the end. And that's not just a sprint. Sometimes it's a long journey up a hill or through difficult terrain. Sometimes our lives have troubles, like Elijah had this trouble. But the angel brings him this food that would nourish and sustain him for the rest of his journey so that he could come to Mount Horeb. Don't forget that truth, that we too have food to sustain us through the trials and difficulties. And when you're going through hard times, don't blame God and stop going to church. That's the last thing you need to do. What you need to do is find your strength in Him. If He's with us, we can go through anything. And He's always with us all days until the end of the world in the Eucharist.